welcome to Two Guys Garage. Now we're going for a test drive here.
You're driving, man.
All right, take it over.
I'm gonna go Sherlock Holmes style. Investigation.
That's right, we got a couple of codes popped up. The car's running rough, so hopefully that'll give us a good start, but from there...
Have you ever asked yourself, why does my car run rough? What does the scan tool do? What do these codes mean? Stay tuned, we're gonna show you.
Just got done with our test drive. Car's running a little bit down on power, a little stumbly on tip-in.
I'm feeling a little queasy.
What, you complain about my driving? So we pulled up some codes. We've got a check engine light, and all we've got is a P0133.
Yeah, O2.
Yeah, so we got a slow responding O2 sensor. Well, I mean, that could be part of the problem, but O2 is sort of a correction factor for what the engine's doing, what it's reading, adding the fuel. It could be part of the problem, but I don't know if it's going to correct everything that we're seeing.
Yeah, but the car has 120,000 miles. I mean, it's time to change.
Well, it's true. I mean, an engine that's got a lot of life on it, it's starting to burn a little bit more oil, and the entire life of that engine, anything that runs through that exhaust is starting to coat that sensor, right?
It's crazy they live that long.
Yeah, so it's going to coat the sensor, it's going to slow it down, and if you think about driving, you're going down a straight road, an O2 sensor is kind of like an on-off. It can go right, it can go left. Well, the faster I can go right and left, the straighter I can kind of stay versus slow, I'm going to be leaving, right?
Back and forth, man.
So a little bit slow, yeah, exactly. A little bit slow responding just means I'm a little bit off my air-fuel ratio. I can lose a little fuel economy, maybe a little bit of kind of idle quality and things like that. But I think what we'll do, let's throw some O2s in it.
Definitely.
Delete the codes out and see where we're at and go from there.
Yep. O2 sensors are easy to swap out. All you do is unplug the plug. There's usually one on either side of your cat. And then if you're lucky like us, you have this cool slotted socket. Slide it on. You can use a wrench too, but this makes it nice and easy. Unscrew. Now once you go to put the new one on, use a nice quality planer unit like this one from Delphi. It's going to make cold starts much better. We're going to show you more about that later in the show, but to install, you want to make sure you have some anti-seize here. These come with it already on, so that makes it easy. Pull the first one out, put it back in to about 28 foot-pounds of torque, and plug it in and you're done.
All right, quick work by my man Fuller. Got the O2 sensor swapped out. Now I can go in here, delete out my codes, start from scratch, and go for a test drive.
And get some lunch.
Lunch sounds good. All right, cheeseburger, no mayo, don't forget to shake.
Extra cheese for you, I know.
That's right.
All right.
What do you say, Brian? Any
Not
better?
much better, man.
Not much.
No, it's pretty much the same.
All right.
Hey, we did get the O2 codes off, though.
All right, so no more
Got that
O2
done.
codes. Okay, did you get the cheeseburgers?
Oh, yeah, got cheeseburger.
All right, we got the cheeseburgers. All right, so how's idle?
Idle's better. Idle's definitely better.
Okay, well, the burgers are greasy the way I like them, so that's good. All right, so tip-in response when you mash the pedal?
About the same.
About the same.
Yeah, not really that great. Power's still kind of not really there.
All right, it's a little under power.
Yeah.
All right, well, sounds like we got some chewing to do on our burgers and maybe the problem.
Yes.
So why don't we get some of these in our belly? On a full stomach, we can think our way through it and go from there. All right. All right, you know, it's a lot easier to think with a full stomach. So I've drawn out an engine, kind of thinking the way through, you know, why we've got some sort of the diagnostic problems, the rough hesitation when you tip in the throttle, a little bit of idle and stuff. So here's my engine. I've drawn it sideways, and I've drawn a V8, even though we're working on a V6. So I've got my engine block down here, my damper, my cylinder head, my exhaust manifold, my cat exhaust, and I've got my intake with my throttle body. Now on an old carburetor, you open the throttle, you got air coming in, and the differences in pressures through the metering circuits are what's going to pull fuel in. And the only way to really correct if you've measured wrong or you've added fuel wrong is if you get out and measure your spark plugs at different driving conditions, or maybe look at the tailpipe and see a bunch of carbon buildup. But on a modern engine, with a PCM and a computer, we measure a lot of stuff, we do a lot of calculations. So we'll measure the air as we open the throttle. The computer will predict or calculate how much fuel to add in. And then we can see how we're doing by the oxygen sensor. So it's measuring how good a job we did of metering, putting the fuel in, and burning it. Well, in our case, we had some slow oxygen sensors, so they've gotten contaminated over time. We replaced them, but we still got this slightly rough idle, poor tip in, lack of performance. So we've got to figure out, you know, fuel, spark, and air, which one of those we're having problems with. So I think we can rule out spark. We might have a fueling problem. We might have an air metering problem. So we're measuring wrong. So that kind of puts us up here. Now we don't have any codes. So it's not telling us what's wrong. But the thing about a vehicle this old, you can start aging sensors. So all of a sudden you're misreading and you're miscalculating. So we've got two different types of faults. We can do a functional fault, like we've got a short circuit, you know, maybe in the sensor somewhere, or a rational fault, like the sensor starts aging and it's misreading, and it can do that for a little while until it gets out of range, and then it says, hey, I think something's wrong with the sensor. So we might be just before that, let's say on a MAF or something else. So maybe we want to focus in on the air metering and see if we can dial that, like get it out of the way, measure it.
Sure.
So,
probably a good idea to visually inspect it too, check it out, because you know, in this area, if you get any cracks or, you know, problem. In fact, let's just go ahead and look. If you look on top of your intake, that's where your MAF sensor is. So you can pull the sensor, look at that, make sure there aren't any wires off, that there are any weird corrosion, anything between the sensor and the intake or the throttle body. If you have any problem between those two, it's going to throw off your reading.
yeah, and all the way down, I mean, everything into your cylinder, so you could have an intake port gasket leak. So any leaks between the sensor and burning that air and fuel mixture could throw everything off a little bit, but
This
so
all
far,
seems to be in good shape.
yeah, I don't see any cracks. The hoses are all tight.
Yeah.
Maybe we look up the service procedure, see
Yeah.
if we can measure what that's supposed to be reading, see
Yeah.
if we're in the zone. And
Take a little
by the
test
way,
drive.
what's going on with your chin?
That's soul patch. You
It
got
looks
one
more
too?
like a pickle or a burger bun.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry
All
about
right, let's pull up the service manual. Let's see what we can read, and maybe we'll go for another test drive. All right, we're gonna take a break.
Sound control mat is scientifically designed to absorb and dissipate vibration created from the engine, road, and structure of your car or truck. Cover as little as 25% of the area for a noticeable reduction in noise. Just peel and stick, easy to cut and bend to conform with no prep work. For maximum noise reduction, use the multi-purpose installation. The 4x6 foot sheet has 3 8-inch sound deadening fiber padding and a highly reflective aluminum bonded on one side for 97% reflective of radiant heat. The multi-purpose insulation also has numerous household uses to save you on gas and your electric bills. This tip is brought to you by LMC Truck. Restore, maintain, and customize your truck with parts and accessories from LMC Truck.
All right, welcome back. Now we think we've kind of isolated to somewhere here in the intake track. We didn't see any, obvious leaks, so maybe we've got an actual metering problem somewhere in the MAF sensor.
Now, in a way to test, we've printed out from the Chevrolet Impala service manual, and there's a way to test. So what we're going to do is plug a scan tool into our OBD2 computer, and we're going to read grams per second of air, both at idle, which should be about 3 to 10, and we're going to stand on it. When we hit the 1-2 shift from first gear to second gear, we should be somewhere around 150 grams per second.
Okay, 150 grams, so we can look at our scan tool, and if we're too far off one way or the other, we might have something wrong with that sensor. So let's go for another drive.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, let's do a burnout, wide open throttle. Let's see what kind of measurement we get at the 1-2 shift.
All right, 50, 60, 75, 100, 104, about 100, yeah. We're about 20% low.
So it didn't quite get to 150 grams per second?
No, not quite.
All right, well, that's starting to make some sense. You know what, let's go ahead and swap out that MAF and see if it improves our number, see if the calibration of the sensor is a little bit off.
Okay. Now we know from my test drive and service manual that we're about 20% out on our MAF sensor. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull that out so we can replace it. So pop the hose, get the sensor out. This one, by chance, you can actually just pull the air cleaner off. Okay, there we go. So now we'll put this on the bench. You can see the housing itself. Now a lot of times if you were to buy a new MAF sensor, you would get this whole part. But Delphi has come up with a nice deal where you just replace the sensor.
Imagine that. Why throw away something that's not bad?
That's
So
right.
If there's no cracks in this little housing, then why toss it? Let's just place a sensor on it. And
on this car, that one sensor could fit like 8 million vehicles, Tahoes, Suburbans.
Yeah, and each of them might have a different airflow requirement, but they can calibrate that same sensor, so it's nice.
Yeah.
Now here's the sensor itself. Comes in a little kit with a key that Brian will show you, and how it works is by hot wire anemometry. Okay, so that didn't quite make sense. It's thin film platinum resistors, right? So they're right here, and the airstream's coming across. Now these resistors are maintained at about 400 F. So they got current flowing through them, and they're nice and hot. Well, as air blows through, you open the throttle, air comes through, it's trying to cool them off. Well, that integrated circuit says, oh, I've got to add more current. So based on the additional current that it needs to add to maintain that same temperature, it knows what the airflow is.
Amazing. There's a little brain in your intake tract.
Yeah, right there, there's a brain. So it's telling the computer, I'm measuring exactly this many grams per second, and everything else goes from there.
And on this car, 120,000 miles on those little platinum wires.
Oh yeah, and you know what makes them kind of get slow and aged over time is you've got a lot of PCV gases which have oils and vapors on them. You know, some of you guys are running air filters that are oil-based for how they operate. You oil them too much, I mean, slowly those vapors, they bake on there, just like in an oven, right? And you can try to clean them over time, but after a certain age, they've just got too much coating on.
Yeah, cleaning a little wire that's got a brain on it. It's always a good idea.
Yeah, now speaking of which, don't touch the electronics.
And there's your key. So I've got it here. I'm going to go ahead and push it down into the body unit. What you're doing is hitting a tab. I'm going to go in with a little screwdriver and just pop. Say that. There we go. And there's an O-ring. You're just going to try to get that to perfect.
All right, easy enough.
Okay, and you take the new one. Don't touch it.
But I can touch this one.
And hope I get it to the right direction. There we go. Don't need that anymore. I'm gonna flip it just to make it easier to push on. There we go.
All right, little clicky. We'll throw it back in, go for a test drive. We're gonna take a break. When we come back, we got a special guest for you.
Welcome back to Two Guys Garage. We got our Ask the Host segment here, people writing in. First one is from E&C. I just took my car into the shop because the AC was blowing warm air. I received an estimate for the repair, and they told me that the compressor had failed and contaminated the system. But in the estimate, they also listed several other parts that were needed to be replaced. And if it's only the compressors failed, why do I need these other parts?
Now, an AC system isn't a whole lot different than an engine or lubrication circuit. If you've got a failure, you can scatter a lot of parts.
Shrapnel.
Yeah, you got big ones, you got small ones. What'll circulate through the system. So you've got to tear it down and try to clean them. But there's a lot of places you can't get to clean those out. Some of these are like this.
Yeah, if you look in your condenser, now these are the little tubes that are acting like a radiator, and they're transferring the heat. And look, there's no way, obviously, this is going to go through. So you're going to have to replace it. There's no way to flush. Now, if you look at the orifice tube, it has a little teeny tube through there, has a filter, and then obviously no way big shrapnel is going to go through there either.
Well, there's no way to clean it. So just like your engine, if you fail a piston, you can't just put a new one in. You're going to do an engine rebuild, and you're going to clean everything. You're going to replace some parts. Now, speaking of replacing parts, when you do that, make sure you got the right oil and the right quantity. Now, you can do OE style like this Delphi compressor. It's already got the right oil and the right amount in it. Makes the job easy, get you back on the road running cool.
Hopefully that answered your question, Ian. Our next one is from Logan D. With NASCAR finally changing over to fuel injection, will teams be allowed to electronically tune their engine, or is it going to be a spec tune?
Now, the engines aren't spec, they're each built different, so I imagine the tune's got to be specific. But since we don't know, we're going to ask our buddy Alan Gustafson. He's the crew chief for the Hendrick Motorsports number 24 car. Alan, why don't you take this one?
Yeah, Brian, that's a great question. NASCAR will give us some leniency on what we call mapping or electronically controlling the fuel injection, depending on what parameters we're using. If it's a startup situation or it's an acceleration situation, deceleration situation. And I think the more we get into it and the more we work on the fuel injection, we're going to see that drivers are going to like a little bit different style when they go to throttle or when they get off the throttle, and we'll be allowed to tune that with our mapping. I
got a question for you, Alan. What kind of other specific engine changes are you expecting for the next season?
Well, Brian, with the fuel injection and how massive an overchange that is for us, I don't think that there will be many other engine changes. The fuel injection is going to be a really big undertaking for all of us to work through and understanding the mapping of the fuel pumps, the reliability of all those components and integrating it into our system. So that's hopefully going to be it. You never know, but I think the fuel injection is going to be the majority of the off-season changes to our engine packages.
So Alan, what kind of fuel injection are you guys going to be running this year?
The fuel injection we'll be running this year is only going to be in testing situations. We're going to have a lot of opportunities when we get on track to test the fuel injection, to fine-tune it, to get it working correctly. Right now on the normal Sprint Cup races you see, those are all carbureted cars. That's what we'll continue with through this season, and we'll be on the fuel injection next year.
Hey, thanks, Alan. We appreciate it. Good luck this season.
Great, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks to the viewers for writing in. Right now, we're going to take a break.
How do you know if your injectors are going bad? If you think you have a bad or clogged fuel injector, check for smoke coming out of the tailpipe. Also, take a look at your oil level and make sure it doesn't start getting higher as fuel starts leaking in through a cracked injector. A bad injector can also be noisy and cause increased emissions. Changing your injectors can be a 10 to 12 hour job. If you take it to the dealership, it could cost you over $2,000 to get repaired. One way to correct a leaking or clogged injector is by picking up Rizlone's Fuel Injector Cleaner. This complete fuel system tune-up helps to eliminate noisy injectors and fuel pumps, rough idle, hard starting, and its upper cylinder lubricant formulation will compensate for the lack of lubrication in today's gas and ultra-low sulfur diesel fuels. This tip is brought to you by Rizlone, affordable solutions to expensive automotive repairs.
All right. I love it when we can ride around, eat ice cream, and, test sensors all at the same time, read codes.
Oh, I know. And get our power back, get our drivability back, tip in response, way better.
Running great.
So, and that's partly because we can do a correction factor with the O2, but that slug of air when you change the throttle isn't getting metered until it's already burnt, it's already been through the exhaust, through the sensor. Well, it's too late, so now you got this lag. But now we're crispy, good throttle, good power, right back on the money.
It's amazing how critical air-fuel mixture is, and being able to read it on each side, MAF at the front, O2 sensor in the back, talking back and forth, and the quicker that can happen, the better it can understand what it is and correct.
Yeah, that's right. Now PCMs are getting faster. The sensor technology is getting better to be faster as well. So we upgraded to the planar style instead of the conical style O2 sensor. So that planar style puts the heating element and the sensor on one thin film. There's less mass. So on cold start, you've got to put heat into that sensor. Once it gets hot, then it can light off and it can do its job.
Now you got the correct ratio early instead of waiting for the old style to get hot.
Yeah, that's right. So we've got our vehicle running tip-top, 120,000 miles, and instead of rebuilding a carburetor, a couple of simple sensors, this thing's ready to go for quite a while.
A couple of clips, couple of screws, that was easy.
So hopefully you learned a lot about diagnostics, how the PCM works, how some of these sensors work, but we're out of time, we're gonna have to take a break.
Let's check out the Two Guys Garage Forum Rides, where members of the Two Guys Garage community show us their home-built projects. Out with the old and in with the new. That owner took the original L48 engine out and replaced it with one he got from a 76 Nova. He reused the intake, carburetor, and distributor. The rest was all new. A little tweaking, like boring it out to 30 over, new crank pistons, heads, clutch and cam, and you have a great father-son project. Check out Old Dog's 5.0 Cobra, sitting next to his Uncle Bob's log cabin, built in the 1800s. With its block board and stroke to 347 CID, or cubic inch displacement, it should put out about 400 horsepower at the flywheel. He says it took almost 2 weeks to smooth out the heads, but the extra horsepower was worth it. With a car weighing in at only 2,370 pounds, he must have a blast cruising mountain roads. Show us your project by joining our community. Or for more information about anything you've seen on today's show, check out speed.com or visit TwoGuysGarage.com.
Welcome to the break room. First thing we're going to show you today is how to pimp your garage.
That's right. This is just one example of the sweetness that you can put in your shop and your garage. It's from Moduline. It's their modular aluminum cabinetry.
And nice because it's all aluminum construction. You're not going to have any corrosion problems. You can get it in all different colors. They sent us some photos of guys that have used Moduline into their garages. I'm telling you, man, it's impressive.
I think they did it just to make us jealous, just when you think you've got your shop set up. I mean,
These are garage mahals.
oh, that's right. Now, these are great because they're modular, they're easy to install. You can put them in all different configurations, and check out these drawers, all ball bearing construction, super nice and clean. I mean, anything from a shop, you can even put them in your trailer because they're lightweight, you know, they can tow real well, and anything from a tech to a lab, you know, chemistry lab, science lab, you name it, you can get all the configurations you want right from Moduline.
Very cool. Got another couple of our favorites here from Workshop Hero. Now this is Metal Rescue, which is a biodegradable, non-toxic rust remover.
Yeah, this is great because all the labor happens right here.
It's wild.
You set your parts in there, you walk away, boom, they come out all nice and clean. So the rust is removed. It only attacks the iron oxide, which is the rust, not your hands, not your paint, not your plastics.
It's water-based rust remover.
Just the rust.
Who could think?
No, that's great. Now you shake that off. Now you're ready to treat it because otherwise the rust is going to come back. So you got a dry coat, you mist it down, get it nice and wet. In 30 minutes, it's dry to the touch. And indoors, you can set your parts out, your steel, your exposed metal, and it'll last for up to a year.
It's crazy.
So
It
do a
does work.
typical, you know, cleaning prep if you're going to paint your parts later on, but you get them cleaned, set them on the shelf with a little spray on them. They're good for when you're ready to go back, finish them off.
Yeah, those are great stuff from Workshop Hero, Metal Rescue, and Dry Coat Rust Preventative. Is your car looking kind of scratchy, not looking new anymore? Well, 3M's come up with a really cool, simple way to restore your paint. It's their paint restoration system, and it all comes in a box.
Yeah, one single, one-stop shop with all the instructions that you need. You got everything from scratch removal, you got your polish, you got your wax, and you got all the different, you know, pads for your 6-inch orbital buffer, and you even have the patented 3M scratch eraser.
Now, it's a 3,000 grit eraser, so you sand down those minor imperfections and then start with the 3 steps. And like I said, it's all in this one kit, so if you don't know what you're doing, it's all here. And anybody that works on their car has a 6-inch orbital, so that's a piece of cake. And again, that's from 3M, their paint restoration system.
Yeah, with that, we're out of time,
We're
so
out.
we'll have to see you next week.
See ya.